In this video, we are going to talk about creating focal points using Gestalt theory and some other concepts. As human beings, our brains like to look for similarities. We tend to group things together when they're similar in some way. So here we have proximity, which means closeness. So we tend to group these into three groups of bunnies. Here we have common region. So if you cut up a background, we tend to group together things that we see as being on the same background. Here we might group all the yellow bunnies together and then all the white bunnies together because they are similar to each other. Here we group them together because they are connected with this line. So we see this is one group and this is another group, this is a third group, and this on its own. So with proximity, we view this as one group because they're all close together, but then we group this together and this together and this together as three separate groups because there are dots that are closer together and they are farther from the other areas. We also tend to group together things having to do with color. So these red dots we group together, even though they're separated by the black dots. And even though these red dots are kind of randomly distributed, we tend to group those together and group the black dots together in this grouping here. We also tend to look for similarities in terms of shape. So here, most people would see the round dots as one group or even four different groups, and then the squares as another group. We also look at size. So things that tend to be similar in size, such as all of these larger shapes we group together. We might group the medium shapes together, no matter what their actual shape is. And then we'll tend to group the smaller shapes together as well, even if some are circles and some are squares. All of these things can work together. So we may see the red triangles as one group, the shape of the green circles together as another group, and then the gray squares as a third group, even though they are randomly distributed against the background. So, because our brains look for things that are similar to each other, when something is different, we notice it right away. It becomes a focal point. And evolutionarily, this could kind of make sense. If you're out on the savannah and you look around and you see the zebra and you see the wildebeest, and then suddenly there's something that's different, there's a lion over there, it would be very helpful, one would think, to be able to see something that's very different and unique in terms of protection. So differences create focal points when we have differences in color, value, size, shape, direction, proximity, all kinds of things. So here we have a difference in color. So our eye immediately goes to this bluish flower out of all the other flowers that are similar. Here, value or lightness brings our eye to her face before it brings it to any other part of the picture. Here also with value, because this area is the lightest, our eye is brought there first before it's brought to the other parts of the picture. Size, when we have one area that is a lot bigger, or one object that's a lot bigger than everything else, or one object that's a lot smaller than everything else, then we tend to look there first. Same with shape. Because the shape is so different, it's also lighter, that's true, but it's a very different shape. Our eye tends to go to this area first, creating a focal point. Direction. If everything in the picture is kind of aligned in the same direction, pointing the same direction, if you have something pointed in another direction, that becomes the focal point because that's the difference that we notice right away. Here too, especially in photographs, we can notice when there's a eye line change in direction as well. If everybody's looking one way and someone else is looking another way, that tends to become a focal point. Proximity, everything else is pretty evenly spaced out, but because there's a change and they look closer together, that is where our eye tends to go. And in terms of alignment, if everything is all lined up and one thing is out of the alignment, such as this center colored pencil, that is what we notice first. Those things can work together. So here we have proximity, alignment, and shape. So these are all similar in terms of shape. They're all similar in terms of alignment. These have proximity, these don't. But this breaks all of those things. So generally, one would look at this first because it breaks proximity, alignment, and shape. Here, second, because it breaks proximity. And then we would see this third. There's also number. If there's a whole lot of one thing and only one of another, again, that contrast creates a focal point. This guy down here. Especially in photography as opposed to painting or other media, there are also some things that are generally used to create focal points. So focus is one of them. If you are using shallow depth of field, whatever is in focus is where our eye tends to go first. There's also framing. So if you have an object framed within the frame by something else with a doorway or a window or something like that, our eye tends to go there first. There's leading lines. So if we have lines leading our eye towards an object, it also will become the focal point. And we have lighting. So if there's beams of light or shadows that encircle something, our eye is led there first. If you have any questions, please let me know. That's what I'm here for.